Hi, everybody. Good morning. Nice to have you here this morning. Um, we're going to begin by just settling in, getting the mind and body together. Kunsanda samgarab shide san tamakaraja banishuna soso natatenga soso katananamala so that Omi chikin kipo jane dusum sange quinking oni ransom chukuna suntud sepa. So in a me shabla so that. So we're going to first establish our bodhicitta motivation. Bodhicitta is the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So when we consider the suffering of beings, humans, animals, and beings in other realms, we, of course, hopefully, feel compassion for them, right? And, want them to be free of this suffering. So if we understand the cause, um, then uh, we can deal with that cause. And since the cause of suffering is really this fundamental ignorance called narikpa, the way to address that cause, to eradicate that cause, is by attaining enlightenment. So once we do that, then we can benefit countless sentient beings. Um, so that is ideally the reason that we practice, or we try to change whatever motivation we came to the practice with, um, to the bodhicitta motivation. So I see Melina says she emailed a question, which I did not see. So let me check that. Uh, yeah, so I think I'm gonna put that question off until the next time because I'm not prepared. So that question is a really good question. It is, how do we cultivate genuine well-being and a positive mind in a world that is falling apart? So I think that's a very uh, relative question, relevant question to today's times, but I'm not, I think it's kind of, anyway, I'm not prepared to talk about that today, but as I think it's a really good question, we can address that next week. Okay, so today we're going to talk about cyclic existence. So in Sanskrit, cyclic existence is referred to as samsara, which you may have heard of. So what this is the round of birth and death and birth and death and birth and death that we have been on since beginningless time, according to the teachings. So when we talk about rebirth, we're referring to that. There's past lives, future lives, and all these different forms. When we discuss karma or the law of cause and effect, we have to take the whole of cyclic existence into consideration: past lives, future lives, different forms, different types of suffering, etc. Okay, so this concept of samsara or cyclic existence, cyclic, right? Because you're going around and around. So we keep kind of doing the same things over and over again. Um, Ironically and sadly, in the search for happiness with the wish to be happy, we continually create the causes of suffering. So that's why it's called cyclic existence. And you'll see when we do the closing prayers at the end, there is that, prayer, the dedication prayer that says, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. So it's called an ocean, right? Because if you think about the ocean, it's very vast, it's very profound, it's very deep, right? Um, so this is what we're going to discuss today. What is that? What is cyclic existence? What does that mean? So, cyclic is the understanding of cyclic existence really has various levels, okay? Um, from kind of the gross understanding down to like the most subtle understanding. So you often see this throughout the Buddhist teachings where they talk about the, um, different levels of understanding. I forgot what they call it typically. Oh, outer, inner, what they say, outer, inner, secret, meaning not like keeping a secret or telling a secret, but like unseen, like not obvious, and like most secret. So secret and most secret means like subtle and even more subtle, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to share this chart that I made with these different uh, realms. So gross this and I'm going to begin with like the outer explanation, let's say, okay, the kind of gross understanding of this, and then I will go into the more subtle understandings. Okay, so don't panic. All right, so let me see. Let me just share. Okay, so here's the chart. Mm, 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 mm. Oh, hang on. Okay, so here's the chart. Okay, so along the top here, we have realm, the experience of beings in that realm, the cause of rebirth in that realm, and then various notes on each realm. Okay, so the realms are ordered in the amount of suffering within that realm. Okay, so the God realm here is at the top because there's the least amount of suffering. Although it is said in the teachings that the human realm is really if you're going to be born in samsara, best to be a human because in that realm it's easier, it's the easiest to attain enlightenment. Okay, because we have enough suffering that we consider like questioning things, right? Like, why do I have to go through this? Or why do my loved ones, why is it like this? But we have enough, what do they call it? Leisure. But leisure, I think, is not really a good word for that necessarily. It's just kind of like we have enough time, we have enough ability, we have the mental capacity and so forth to follow the Dharma. So the human realm is actually the best one to be born in, but it has more suffering than these two above it. Okay. Now let's begin with the God realm. Okay. So the experience of beings in that realm is very analogous to the Christian idea of heaven, right? Everything is blissful. It lasts a very long time, but it's important to understand that none of these realms are considered eternal. Some last longer than others, but none of them are eternal. And we are born into any of these realms according to our own karma or our own actions. Okay. And we'll go more into detail with that. So the experience of being there is very blissful, it's very heavenly, it's super comfortable, and so forth. Okay. Um, the problem is with that is that eventually your karma for being in this realm starts to run out. And because you were like blissed out the whole time, it never occurred to you to question anything. Like, why would you, right? You're just having a great time. And so you have everything you could ever dream of. So it wouldn't occur to you like, what is this about, right? So your karma just like runs out. The positive karma that you engender to be reborn in this type of existence eventually just runs out, and then like there's nowhere for you to go but to one of the lower realms, typically quite a low realm, because of all the positive karma that you kind of burned off, right? And their suffering is very intense. Actually, it takes them a really long time to die, like that they say in the teaching, like 700 human years they go through this experience. And it's very lonely because like their friends start to leave them and they're kind of get isolated. Not only that, they have this kind of rudimentary clairvoyance where they can see where they're going to be reborn, and that also causes them to suffer because it's not the God. Okay. So the cause of rebirth there is virtuous acts done with pride. So this is an interesting concept, this cause of rebirth, okay? Because it's you have to understand it's very general. It's very general. So virtuous acts, like what anybody would consider a virtuous act, right? Being generous, being kind, etc. These are all virtuous acts. And virtuous acts on their own, like it's really good, it's better than unvirtuous, better than unvirtuous acts, no question. But uh unless our virtuous acts are mixed with um, the understanding of emptiness, so being free of concept of subject, object, and action, which is a whole nother subject, which I'm not going to really go into today, they can only bring us to the higher realms. They're not going to free us from samsara altogether, which is our aim. Okay. So this virtuous act done with pride. So each of these is associated with particular emotion. So here it is pride. Okay. And then, like I said, the notes, it's not eternal, and the process of death takes very long and is actually really hard. So the next realm down is called the jealous god realm, sometimes called the demigod realm or the asura realm. And here their experience is they have like a tremendous amount of riches, but there's a lot of jealousy. They fight with the gods, and like the gods are super powerful and like they're not bothered by this, but the jealous gods are jealous and they work themselves into a tizzy, and then there's a lot of fighting and it's difficult. So this is virtuous acts done with jealousy. So let's go back to virtuous acts done with pride. So, we can be generous. Let's take generosity. We can be generous um, and have that be even like a slightly negative act, right? If you're generous because you want to show off, oh, look how much I donated to the hospital, right? Um, and have your name. I mean, bless those people for sure. But I always kind of chuckle when I see that, somebody's name, hospital wing, why do you need that? But anyway, it's kind of that's like virtuous action with pride, right? To sort of show off or to just be so proud of yourself, like, oh, I'm the best. Look at how good my heart is. I have $1 billion and I gave $10 to this beggar, right? So now we have virtuous action with jealousy, and that can be a very similar thing if you just again going to generosity. It's not only generosity, okay? I'm just using that as an example. If you do virtuous acts with jealousy because oh, your rival, gave something big and got a lot of recognition for that, and you're jealous of them. So then you give something big, right? It's virtuous on the face of it, right? But it's tinged with this negativity. Okay. So again, they suffer a lot from jealousy, etc. Then we get to the human realm, which is us. So we experience a lot of desire, a lot of suffering. I don't know why I have choice there. I don't remember, but we're all, according to, again, we go to that closing prayer, say, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. These are considered kind of the four main streams of suffering, at least in the human realm. I don't know if it applies to other realms, but so there's a lot of suffering in this realm. Again, virtuous acts done with desire. So, um, let's say we'll just use that same example of generosity throughout. So, generosity done with desire, it can be like, oh, you really want this, I don't know, you really want to impress your girlfriend or your boyfriend. And so you are, generous. I have to say you give a lot of money to the, to the to a beggar on the street or something, but it's not out of any good heart from your side, right? It's not because you care about that person or you want them to be free from suffering. It's just you want to impress your girlfriend so that you can, have her, right? Or him. Um, And you see, like, if you are ever on social media, you see a lot, like, it bugs me so much, these people who use homeless people as content, right? They're going to show how great they are. They're going to, just do it. You don't have to film yourself doing that. Even Jesus said, like, do that stuff in private. You don't need to toot your own horn all the time, right? I just find it distasteful, let's say. Okay. Anyway, so we have this entire range of suffering, and the Four Noble Truths are a good starting point for that. And I have other videos on this channel with what those are. So I would look that up. We don't have time to go into it in great detail. Then we have the animal realm, and they suffer so much. Okay. One of their main sufferings is fear. If you really observe animals, any kind of animals in the wild, whether it's insects or birds or, deer or, whatever, what have you, to animals in the jungle and so forth, there's so much fear, right? They spend all of their time looking for food. Excuse me. If they're if they're an animal that is preyed upon, then they're always afraid, right? Who's around here that's gonna kill me? If they're a prey animal, then they're always looking for, their fear is like not finding food, which, most, if you animals in the wild suffer so much. They spend all their time looking for food, being afraid of others, or fighting with their rivals to get food, right? And it's just a terrible, really terrible, quite a terrible existence. And then you have animals that are used for experimentation, which is horrendously nightmarish, just awful, awful. Having various drugs injected into them, into their eyes, being operated on without anesthetic. I mean, it's just unbelievably cruel. And then there's animals that are raised for food, and that is also a really horrific and brutal experience for them. That they are suffering from, like, the minute that they're born, just tortured until the minute that they're killed. And this is, I think, among the worst, because animals in the wild are animals in the wild. There's not much we can really do for them, right? And animals that are used for experiments, I mean, most animal experimentation is useless, actually, because it's already been done. But this company feels like, oh no, we need to do our own experiments, which is just unnecessary. And that's like for things like drugs and so forth. Then you get to psychological experiments on animals. So the issue with animal testing is that there are some animals that, yes, are genetically very close to humans, or, it has been shown over time that if, let's say, mice don't react well to something, then humans might also not react well. But in the end, animals are not humans. So if you take psychological experiments, for example, where animals are like deprived of sleep or deprived of affection, or this kind of thing, either that's the most useless, because if they if they are like humans, if you're saying we're doing this experiment because they're like humans, then it's immoral, because you wouldn't do that on human beings, right? And if they're not like humans, it's useless, because how is it going to apply to us if they're not like us, right? Nevertheless, that goes. So at least with, like, experimentation and things like that, at least there's maybe some good that comes with that. But with animals that are raised to be killed so we could eat their corpses, which is what it is, that's not exaggeration, that's worse, because it's unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary. Totally 100% unnecessary. Especially now, especially in the West, like where we are, it's, plant-based food, plant-based diet, it's so easy to find information on that. Like we have the internet, we have all these companies making things. People sometimes say like, oh, it's too expensive. Yeah, if you want to buy fake meat all the time and fake cheese all the time, that's going to be expensive. But you don't eat that stuff. Personally, I almost never eat that stuff. Beans are super cheap. Rice is super cheap. Vegetables are not expensive. You know, grains are not expensive. Nuts, depends on the nut. Okay. But you get my point. Okay. And anything that you want to make, let's say you really like lasagna, but you're like, well, I'm not going to eat animal products anymore. The dairy industry also causes immense suffering. So, oh, but lasagna, what am I going to do? Just look up a recipe, man. Look it up. Vegan lasagna. Do you like chicken fried steak? Vegan chicken fried steak. Just put it in your little machine, and a bunch of recipes will come up that you can follow, and you can make whatever you like. So, you know, if we think about these poor animals um, who spend years suffering and then have their throats slit at the end of it, just so we can have 5 minutes of pleasure on our tongue, you know, that's not really a fair exchange. So anyway, animals suffer a great deal. Um, so the cause of rebirth in the animal realm is unvirtuous acts done with ignorance. So I put Timuk there to distinguish it from Marikpa, which I mentioned earlier. Okay. So Marikpa is like this super fundamental ignorance about the nature of reality, the nature of how things work, the nature of the self. Okay. Timuk is more as translated as kind of stupidity, right? So it's sort of a really dullness and a kind of willful ignorance. Like we don't want to see the truth, which is different than not being able to see the truth. You know what I mean? So anyway, so again, I went through their suffering. Then we get to the hungry ghost realm, sometimes called the Preta realm. Okay, excuse me. And the Preta realm is an experience of intense, unmet hunger and thirst. Okay, intense, very, very intense. Cause of rebirth here is unvirtuous acts done with greed. So, uh, um, yeah. So greed, essentially, right? Avarice is going to cause rebirth in this realm. So their experience, like the way their bodies are, is really painful. They have these like massive stomachs, but grass-like limbs. So it's really hard for them to get around. And they often have an experience of like, for example, like they might see in the distance like a whole banquet laid out for them. And then they go over there with like a great deal of effort, you know, because it's so hard. And when they get there, they discover that it's surrounded by armed guards and they can't even touch it. Or all the food and drink turns into pus and blood, things like that. Like it's so difficult for them. They suffer a great deal. Um, then we get to the hell realms. So there's two types. There's the hot hells, which is intense suffering with heat, and that's very analogous to the Christian idea of hell, apart from it being eternal because it's not eternal. And then the cold hell, which is intense suffering with cold, where the body kind of breaks up and things like that. So the cause of being born in the hells is unvirtuous acts done with hatred or anger expressed, and the cold hells is unvirtuous acts done with hatred or anger repressed. Okay. Um, so it's just a very torturous experience for these beings. Um, yeah. So when we talk about all beings in the teachings, you know, may I free all beings, we're talking about all beings in all of these realms, right? And this is um, this whole thing is driven by the law of cause and effect, meaning karma, right? So it's not just by chance that we experience any of these realms. It's the result of the seeds that we plant, essentially, right? Through actions of body, speech, and mind. Then in the next life we have this kind of experience. So we talk about these things as though it were a physical place, right? Born in the God realm, born in the hell realm, born in the hungry, but it's really not a physical place. It's a mental experience that beings have because of their karma, which causes them to perceive things in a certain way. Okay. So then before I get into that too much, though, uh, I want to say that beings don't go through these 6 realms in order. Okay. It's not like, oh, we all started in the hells and then, we gradually move up. And like this is kind of the idea of sort of the new age idea, right? Of like, oh, you chose your parents and you're in this life to learn XYZ. And then the next life, you'll go up and things will be easier, blah, blah, blah. Okay. It's, that's their view. They're welcome to it, but it's not the Buddhist point of view. Okay. So they say it's like a bee in a jar or a fly in a jar. If you put a bee in a jar, it doesn't just go up and down, it goes all over the place, right? So we're a human, we happen to be, fortunately born as a human being in this life, but that doesn't mean next life will be a jealous god or a god realm or even a human. We could be human and then a hungry ghost and then a god realm and then the hell realms and then a human again and then an animal. So it just goes all over the place according to our karma. And this is one of the things that makes karma quite challenging to understand, right? Or to grasp, because it's not like a one for one exchange, like, oh, I did something virtuous now, therefore in the next life I will experience happiness. I mean, that's the general law of karma, is that negative or unvirtuous acts of body, speech, and mind result in suffering. Positive or virtuous acts of body, speech, and mind result in happiness. That's the general, very broad, the broadest stroke you can have on karma. But the issue becomes complicated when we start to consider that, we need the right conditions for that seed to come to fruit, right? So karma just means action. So if we were going to be precise, we would say karma and the karmic fruit, or action and the fruit of our actions. Okay. But we all just use the word karma willy nilly in front of God and everybody. Okay. Um, so we need the conditions, just like if you consider planting a seed, an apple seed, right? If somebody gives you a packet of apple seeds and you just keep it in the drawer in your kitchen, like there's no way those apple seeds can grow. So you might, if that packet of apple seeds might be a particular set of actions that you did in some life, but the conditions aren't there for those things to ripen. But if that person takes those seeds and plants them in the ground and then provides all the conditions necessary, the right soil, water, protecting it from bugs and deer and things like that, then it will grow and it will produce apples, right? So uh, the conditions have to be there, and those conditions are one of the many things that makes karma a little challenging to understand, okay, or to get a grasp on. But anyway, that's part of the reason that we just kind of go all over the place, is that the conditions are or are not there. Plus, karma is not fate. Okay, it's not uh, static. It's in flux all the time. The virtuous things we do kind of lessen the negative things we do, or unvirtuous things we do, and the opposite is true also. So things can change quite a bit over time. So there's no really predicting what's going to happen. Okay. So let's go to more subtle understanding. Okay, that's the gross understanding of these. All right. So I mentioned before about that these 6 realms are not like places. You can't say like, oh, the God realm is above us and the hell realm is below. It's not that. Okay. Although we use that language because it's kind of hard to use. It's awkward to use another, other whole bunch of words to say one thing. Okay. So what we're experiencing is a perception. okay? Cyclic existence, all of it is essentially a misperception of reality. It's a hallucination, okay? So this, our perceptions are colored by our actions, okay? And this is again like where things get a little complicated, right? And this is why too, like really I encourage you to study more and to read as much as you can and to attend teachings and attend classes. And I'll talk about that at the end. But to really learn about what this is, because it's extremely interesting, but more important, it's very helpful if we want to be free of suffering, even in this life. If we want to be free of suffering, understanding this mechanism and really understanding and having trust and confidence in karma goes a very long way in reducing our own suffering. Yeah. And then more importantly, it helps us to progress on the path to enlightenment, where we can be free of suffering once and for all, and better yet, help countless beings to attain that same state. Okay, so it's quite in depth. I can't go through everything in a few minutes here. All right, but it's really very interesting. So ultimately, it is just our own perception. So as humans, we have a tendency to just kind of believe what we can see, right? So we're like, okay, well, the human realm exists. I'm in that realm, and the animal realm exists because I can see them. But the other realms are just kind of imagination. No, they are just as real and just as unreal as our own experience right now. Okay. Our own experience, what we're experiencing right now, is also an illusion. It's also just a misperception of reality. Okay. That's the deeper understanding of this. And the deepest understanding of this is that none of this exists at all in the way that we perceive it. Ultimately, it's all empty, right? But we're stuck in this kind of dualistic view and the misapprehension of reality, that Marikpa part, that prevents us from seeing that right now. So as we follow the path, that's a process of like removing these veils, removing all these layers to get to the truth that is already there, that is within us, our Buddha nature or our enlightened nature. Okay? All right. So I'm going to stop here and we will go to we will go to meditation, if I can figure out how to. All right. I like hid all the controls and now I don't know where to find them and I'm kind of stuck here. Ah mm, hmm, no. Sorry, excuse me. No. Okay, there we go. That should have done it. Yeah. Oh, I think, did that do it? Hmm, let's see. Yeah, okay, good. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's do some meditation. And today I would like to do alternating meditation, where we alternate between focusing on the breath and resting the mind. Okay. So this one, how we, what our posture is and where our eyes are important. So I'm going to explain each thing and then we'll start. So what we want to do is we're going to begin with mindfulness of breathing, which many or most or maybe all of you know. Okay, so in that one, we're going to put our hands like this in our lap. Okay, mouth is closed, um, butt relaxed, tongue resting on the roof of the mouth, breathing through the nose. The eyes are down. Okay, so then we focus on the breath for a little while. Okay, then I'll say switch. I'll say switch, and then you put your hands palms down on your legs. Okay, and you're breathing through the mouth, not the nose. You're breathing through the mouth, and your eyes are looking slightly upwards. So if you look all the way up, and if you look straight ahead, okay, and then you look all the way up, it's like halfway between those two lines. All right. So just looking slightly upward, an unfocused gaze, breathing through the mouth, letting the mind rest. So what do we mean by that? It just means like in the previous ones, you're trying to focus the mind on the breath, okay? In this one, you're just letting the mind settle into its natural state. So you're not running after thoughts and all that. At the same time, you're not trying to focus on one thing in particular, okay? So then I'll say switch again, and then we'll go back to this posture, all right? Breathing through the nose, focusing on the breath, letting the thoughts come and go. So I'll start in shorter periods, and I will explain a few times to remind you how to do that, okay? And then we'll go for longer periods without so much talking, okay? All right, so we're going to begin like this. Mouth is closed, breathing through the nose. The eyes are downward, open, like half open, say, looking down a few feet in front of you. Bring your awareness to the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. All right, letting the thoughts come and go on their own without following after them. Let's begin there, okay? Here we go. Begin now. Which? So you're going to put your hands, palms down on the legs. Mouth is breathing through the mouth. Mouth is slightly open. You're breathing through the mouth. Eyes are slightly upward. And let the mind rest in its natural state. Which? Hands in this position. Breathing through the nose. Eyes downward. Focus. Relaxed awareness of the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. Letting the thoughts come and go. Okay, switch. Palms down on the knees, breathing through the mouth, looking slightly upward, resting the mind. Okay. Switch. Posture. Mouth closed, breathing through the nose, eyes downward. Relaxed, focusing on the breath, sensation of the breath. Letting the thoughts come and go. Switch. Palms down on the knees, breathing through the mouth, looking slightly upward, resting the mind. Switch. Focusing on the breath. Next, resting the mind, breathing through the mouth, looking upward, resting the mind. Focusing on the breath, hands on the lap, breathing through the nose, eyes looking down. Resting the mind, breathing through the mouth, hands on the knees, eyes looking up. Okay, we can end the meditation now. All right, so now we're going to say the closing prayers, but don't run away after that because I have a couple of announcements for you, okay? So I'm gonna share my screen again and we'll say these prayers together. If you don't want to join in, that's fine. It's okay. Okay. So these are just going to say in Tibetan. We're beginning with the prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and then the one below that, and so forth. Kanri wawe kowe shinkam su pendante wa malu juene. Chenre si won tenzin gyam su yi shapega gaba tu tenkyu shi. Om swasti jigme kimpe kano yamparu. Kogab se chen su se puntawa. Lido dun sanam ke no bucho. Se che gawe shankin tasu so. Om swasti zela gyam su chenab tun le. Nunzin da se gyu chu pema wang. Song sun na tre gyo po ta tene. Up chen ten de shi ten ta ge sho. Lama kumbam sampo soa de. Shudu kwe se ringwa soa de. Trile da shinge pa soa de. Lama dan tre wa me pa chingi lo. And the next page. So this is the prayer I was talking about earlier. So this one we're going to talk. So I'll just explain it for a second. So by this merit, may all attain omniscience. So merit is like virtuous, the results of virtuous action or whatever. Omniscience in this case, synonym for full Buddhahood, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing. So this is talking about karma, right? So it's our own wrongdoing that causes us to suffer. So that's the real enemy. Then this is what I mentioned earlier, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. And then again, I talked about this from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Okay. So this one we're going to say once in English, once in Tibetan. Remaining three, we'll just say in English, and then we'll do the 100 syllable. Okay. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, in the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Sonandi tamche sikani tone nebe dranam tamche shin kegana jibano tupai sikne tsome doa sho. May bodhicitta precious and sublime arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish ever more and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may it too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms and primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakai. May I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manubalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Tishta Trito Me Bawa Sutokayo Me Bawa Supokayo Me Bawa Anurakto Me Bawa Sawasidi Me Prayatsa Sawakama Sutsa Me Chitan Shriyam Kuruhum Aha Ho Bhagavan Sawatata Kata Vajrama Me Mutsa Vajripa Maha Samaya Sattva. Okay, so before you go, I want to make a couple of announcements. Please check out the links in the description box below for our website, signing up for the newsletter, downloading the prayers, etc. So have a look there. There's a bunch of information. We are starting two new classes. First one is Wednesday, October 1st, and the second is Thursday, October 2nd. You'll find that in our website. So click on that link And the links to those classes are right at the top of the homepage. So you'll see that right away. You can see all the details. But the first one is called, the Wednesday class is called Walking the Spiritual Path. And we'll be studying Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche's text called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. So this text is really good. It's super interesting. And it's really about kind of our approach to the path. So you don't have to be Buddhist. It can be, let's say that you, I don't know, whatever, you follow some other faith, then this will help you with that that path as well, right? Because it's just about the approach that we take. It's really good text. I really encourage you to do that one. The one on Thursday is called we're studying a text called Words of My Perfect Teacher, and the class is called that too. And this is a super classical text, old school, right? So it um yeah, so don't panic. I guess is what I always want to say with this text. Don't panic, man, because it can look a bit, um, yeah, there's a lot of unfamiliar terms, unfamiliar concepts to the Western mind, etc. But don't worry about it. I'll be there. I will hold your little hand and I'll explain everything and it'll be cool. Just like these 6 realms, that's part of what we'll be talking about, right? The different ways of understanding those things, okay? Um, so that is the first year of long-term program that lasts at least 3 years. And that is for people who are really interested in following the path, who, want to, at least are considering kind of committing themselves to this path. So the first year we study this text that I just described. Second year we do what's called dedicated practitioners group, and then we practice a particular sadhana. That was given to us by one of our teachers. And then the third year, we begin the preliminary practices called Nundro. So again, all that information is in the site. I do want to stress though that that first year, if you're just like, I'm not going to commit to this, that's fine. You don't have to commit. Anybody can do that first year. If you're just curious about Buddhism, you just want to learn more, you want to deepen your understanding, you can do that first year, no problem. It doesn't commit you to anything. It's just if you want to do the second year, you have to have done the first. If you want to do the third, you have to have done the first and second. Okay. So I would really encourage you to look into that. Then tomorrow is a Buddha day. Okay. And it's also an eclipse. So we're going to do the Buddha sadhana at 11:30 tomorrow on Zoom, not on YouTube, on Zoom. So again, look at the website. All the information is there, the link, etc. And because it's an eclipse, we're going to add an extra really beautiful prayer at the end of that Melina will share when she sends out the reminder. And I don't know, maybe I'll try to figure out how to upload it. But in any case, I'll share it on the screen. So don't worry if you don't have it in your hands. Then I want to say, if you can, please donate to Songtsen Gampo, because we really do have a lot of expenses, even without having a physical space. We have to pay for the website, we got to pay for advertising, we have to pay our accountant. I'm getting paid a small amount of money. We got to pay for Google services and things like that. So there's a lot of different bills that we have. So we really need your help with that. If you want to make a one-time donation, that's cool. Best really though is if you become a member and you can just commit to a certain amount, as low as $10 a month. And then it's just easy. You just go through the thing once and then it just continues to take it out of your account. You don't have to think about it again. And then we know we have X amount of income every month. So please think about that. And finally, I will ask you to please like the video and also subscribe to our channel. I know it seems dumb, but it's really important for our videos getting more eyes on them. Last time I asked people to do that, and not one of you did it, not a single one. So please do that, okay? Please do that. It will help us, and it's more importantly that it helps others, because the more people can have access to the Dharma, that's our whole mission, right? Is to give people access to the Dharma so they can be free of suffering. So I know that it sounds like a really small thing and I feel ridiculous saying it, but we would really appreciate it if you could do that. And finally, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's always good to have you. I hope to see you tomorrow also at 11:30 and in our classes and when we do the Buddha Sadhana on other days and so forth, okay? So thank you again. Have a wonderful remainder of your weekend, and we'll hope to see you soon. Okay. Bye, everybody. Bye. Love ya.